This video comes into two parts. The first one, some of you might have already seen it in another clip, and it goes through the early church in Jerusalem and the Ebionites and Nazarenes and the head of the church, which was James. And we talk about the Sermon of the Mount and the opening and the salvation that comes from receiving the Word. And the second part, and you can, in the description, there will be part 1, part 2. You can click on part 2 and go straight into that. The second part goes into more detail into the Gnostic understanding of death and resurrection. It is not about blood, it is not about sacrificing either animals or human beings, but is about the death of the ego and the rebirth into the love of Jesus, into the love of the universe, into discovering our true essence. Is about becoming one with the Father. Because as we read in some of the Gospels, he says, Jesus, I am one with the Father, I and the Father are one. But a bit lower down, later, he says, and I want you to share in that partnership as well. I want you to, as well, to become one with the Father. So we'll see into the Gnostic understanding of that particular approach. So here we go into first part. I hope you enjoyed. If you've already seen it before, see it another time, because I think it's quite good, and it really sets you up then from really understanding what the message of the Gnostics is. This evening we are going to talk about what was a very, very large and important Christian denomination. At the very beginning of Christianity, we are talking from few decades afterwards till about 500 AD, and it only disappeared because unfortunately the church ordered their elimination because they were not conforming to what were the doctrines that had been decided and chosen by Rome. So, but before that, they had many books, and they strongly influenced Christian thought and the Christian world, along with the early Nazarene church, Ebionite church, which was a very different ideology to the one that we know today, which was derived more from Rome and then from various derivations, breakaways from Rome, but that still had the core beliefs. So the Gnostic could be quite controversial because they go very much against what is today orthodoxy. But first of all, let's see what was the ideology that they opposed. And by opposed, it's not that they were against. They were not aggressive or violent people. They were just saying like, no, and thanks, no. You see? So, the idea that we have today in the majority of Christian groups is that comes from the Old Testament, that somehow there is this God, which is a rather jealous God, which can punish for disbelief, and somehow, like most of the world in those days, in those ancient cultures, except for Buddhism, this God taught us that blood of others, of the innocent, can cleanse our sins. And there were many groups like the Essenes, the prophetic groups, which I believe Jesus came from in Israel, that didn't believe in that. They believed that it was to charity, to giving, to love, to manifesting a life of benevolence, and with a heart which has loved in it, and could see the brotherhood and the sisterhood of all of creation. That was what could really cleanse our sins. But anyhow, the broadband, the establishment belief was that blood can cleanse your sins. So if you do something terrible, you kill some people, you torture, you then take a poor animal, a pigeon, a dog, a cat, bring them to a sacred place, stab them, and the blood that pours out of those poor beings, those poor creatures, somehow cleanses me. That's it. All that I have done has been forgiven by torturing and murdering these little animals. And we see already some objection to that even in parts of the Bible. At some point, Isaiah says, he speaks like if it was the word coming from God. I don't want your sacrifices. What I want is your benevolence, is the charity that you do for the widows. That is what truly brings me close to you. But so that was very, very prevalent. Now, we are realizing how much we have misinterpreted and misunderstood Christianity, as well by a tremendous amount of books that were found in the walls of monasteries and all over the place, in caves. It was like after the 40s, a message started coming to us, a very strong message of what was really the preaching of Jesus, what he really stood for. And in a way it was never lost, because it was there in the Sermon of the Mount. Be like this, be like that, open your heart, be encompassing, be compassionate, be charitable, And those were the things that will lead you to the Father. And that he said, that is my word, and without this word you don't get anywhere. Not only that, I will deny you. In front of the Father one day, if you haven't followed my word, I will deny you. So this kind of approach, and this kind of approach that talks very much the kingdom of heaven, because the word leads you to the kingdom of heaven. But the kingdom of heaven is not something that goes, boom, you have been saved. Jesus again and again and again, he repeated it, is like a seed that grows. And is a seed that can grow into a tree that will give shelter to animals, to humans, give nourishment, and so forth. You'll be a source of light. So that was very much, I'm not going to go into this now, but we'll see more of it at some stage. That was very much the Nazarene world, the Ebionite world of Jerusalem, the early church, with James at its head. When the Romans destroyed Jerusalem and Judea and Israel, then that particular force lost its power, and somehow, very slowly, Rome took over. Now, a lot of this way of thinking found also roots in North Africa and the Middle East, and many of them gathered together with the name of Gnostics. Now, many Nazarenes, they still accepted the validity of the Old Testament, but the Gnostics, they clearly said, the Father of which Jesus speaks, the forgiving Father, which says you are saved by the love that you have in your heart and how you express it, is not the same of the jealous, vengeful God of the Old Testament. So they very boldly broke away from it. They then, that message of love, they carried it a step further into when you are filled with that love, the sensation comes that you don't know at times where you end and the Father starts. It's talking about being filled by that presence and that love. And in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus goes quite far with that, because he says, don't call me master. One of the disciples called him master. He says, the moment that you can drink from that source to which I've been pointing, you then receive my same essence. Okay? You and I, we disappear. I become you, you become me. The two of you disappear, and there is just this presence. So there isn't anymore a master and a follower. And a lot of the path of the Gnostics was through meditation, through contemplating, through this nature, and through allowing gradually this love to penetrate us, and then to truly awaken us to our true self and through our true essence. And it's not that you as an I disappear as such. As a person you remain as such, but you know that you are a wave coming out of the ocean of the Father, or you are a drop in the ocean. So they were a cut different from the rest of Christianity, because they were not adopting a very important part of it, which was believing in the Old Testament. And we also had other Christian sects like Marcion. And Marcion wrote the Tripartite, was 3 big books showing how the two divinities were not the same. Like, for example, in the Old Testament they say, when you see a leper, run away, avoid any contact. And they used to bring them into caves and say, stay there, don't come any close to us, you are polluted. Yet Jesus went to them and he said, happy are the last, because they will be the first in the kingdom of heaven. The love of the Father is not for the pure, puritanical people that are all the time in the temples, but the love of the Father is for you who are living in these caves, dispossessed from everybody. And it's this love that will save you. So that was a very important aspect. So the aspect that blood of the innocent, blood of another person cannot save you. It has to be the opening of your heart, the gradual path of filling your heart with charity and compassion and truthfulness. So you can see from the Gnostic Gospels, by the way, the church had burned them all, and then by pure chance, it's a long story, but by pure chance they were found in a cave in Egypt in 1947, around the same time that they found the Dead Sea Scrolls in Israel. And then they also find the homilies of Clemens, which is again the whole story of the very, very early Christianity. It's amazing. Mother Earth just opened up its bowels and go, here, you know, this is the truth. So the Gnostic path of salvation is by cultivating this love of the Sermon of the Mount, but also by experiencing what it truly means. And you know, the Gospel of John is a very Gnostic influenced gospel. I and the Father are one. You know, that is not pointing to one person, but that's pointing to a state of communion. Because a bit further down, he says, and this unity that I have with the Father, that is what I'm also offering to you, for you to have. So when blood is not saving us, to which purpose is the ideology of the cross. Now, it's not that the early Nazarenes and Ebionites and Gnostics did not believe in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, but they saw it under a different profile. Later on, the Pauline theology, they just basically said, well, that sacrifice has cleaned all the blood that there ever was. And just by saying, I believe that that happened, you are, bang, saved, totally transformed. Are you? Without doing any hard work, without true letting go of our past and so forth. You see, but anyhow, that was not the path of most of early Christianity, and definitely not of the Gnostics. So I will discuss it in more detail, but I'll put a link as well to a free ebook that I have, and it talks about the path of universal oneness, how you can reach that goal of unity from different sources. But there is a very long section on early Christianity, and I'm sure if this is of interest to you, you'll be very interested to read it. So what the Gnostics and early Christians were saying, you cannot be saved like this by blood, and by blood of an innocent person. So then the question comes, well, if he died and resurrected, that by the way is very seldom mentioned in Gnostic books, and as a matter of fact in early Christianity books. But if you say then, what was the purpose? Was there a purpose in his dying? And I will give you the numbers of the verses, but in a brief manner, Jesus very clearly explains it in the Gospels. You know, people see for what Jesus says in the books that other people wrote, but very few read what the Gospels write. Of course, many things have been changed in the Gospel, but still there is the essence is there. And in John, he says, you will have a sign, you know, so that you can believe that I am the Son of the Father, meaning that I am aligned with the Father. And when you will see that I can defeat death with that faith in me, then your faith will grow stronger. And the verse finishes saying, and after he did that, the disciples believed even stronger. Their faith truly increased. So, and in another verse he says, you want a sign, and the sign that I will give you is the sign of Jonah, who was in the belly of a whale for 3 days and 3 nights, and then he came out again. You know, so I will do the same as Jonah, and that will be another sign of who I am, of what my mission is, who I'm in contact with, where my knowledge and my love comes from. But that unity that I have, I want to offer it to you as well, so that one day you can also say, I'm one with the Father. So that was the main thing about the death and the resurrection. And the Gospels, they all talk about that. There is nothing about the resurrection somehow clearing us of all of our sins. And yes, you might come with just a couple of verses that were manipulated by the church, like the last will be the first and you have to serve everybody, like I will give my life for the salvation of many. And that was interpreted as, oh look, he's given his life so that with his death he can purify the sins of everybody else. But when you read the Latin and the Greek, is something completely different. You know, it was just translated in a different way. What he's saying is, I will, like you dedicate your life for the salvation of many, and I will also dedicate my life to save people. You know, to bring them to love and to bring them to the light. This is what I will give my life for. But that is my mission, that is my preaching. That is what I talk about. So that was the most important thing in the concept of the death and resurrection. It was like showing what truly his essence was. So the main core of the Gnostic belief, and it's a long topic, and also, by the way, let me make it clear, you might say, oh no, but I've heard something else. There were many Christian Gnostic groups, denominations, so there were differences, but the main core though was, like in the quantum field, everything comes to a zero. Everything that is plus and minus, when you bring them together, all the universes come to just pure being and pure energy. So the first thing that there is the absolute, the plethora. This pure peace and pure silence. So many universes have been created, but nothing has been created. Nothing has ever happened. Yet everything has happened. Bit puzzling, confusing? Don't worry. From this ocean of peace, then the Logos, the Beloved, emerges, and this is just pure love and pure love. And from the vibrations of this pure love, the mother of creation arises. You see, Sophia. And within Sophia, all the universes, material universes, start taking place. But at the beginning, this was in perfect harmony. And it's not that there are three permanent, no. They are all the plethora, they are all the absolute. It's only that you have the manifested part and the silent part. Okay? So it's not three different people. So the Sophia arises, and all the universes and the whole of life comes with her. All that happens, the great mystery is that for a moment Sophia becomes so fascinated by all this creation that she starts losing herself in it, forgetting its true essence, its true nature, and begins to feel separated. From that separation, the demiurge is born. And it's called the demigod. And that, the Gnostics say, is the power, is the God that the Abrahamic faiths follow and believe. I am a jealous God. Cut their heads because I am a jealous God. Go and destroy all these nations because I'm a jealous God. If I love you, but if you don't believe me, I'll burn you in hell forever. That the Gnostics, they refused. And they were saying, the Beloved is just pure love, is just pure being. Now, once you are caught in Maya, in illusion, in Sophia forgetting herself, then God does not punish you, because when you get into that state, then you see yourself separate and you become inimical to people. You think that there is a struggle for survival. So there is violence, there is lying, there is robbing, there is killing, and all kinds of things. There is arrogance, you name it, resentment, all of that comes about. So all of that really changes us. But when we sin, when we hurt, when we hurt others and ourselves, and we don't follow anymore the eternal law, do unto others as you would like others to do unto you. And I'll remind you again, that's what Jesus said when he gave all his commandments and laws on the Sermon on the Mount. But he said all of this comes to rest on one thing. Just one thing. Everything I've ever said. Do unto others as you would like others to do unto you. And do not do unto others what you would not like others to do unto you. So in this sense, a lot of early Christianity believed in karma. So it did not believe in eternal hell, where you burn forever, but it believed in having to learn. you keep on transmigrating in various forms. But it's not just a punishment. It's an expression of love. It's an expression of saying, I'll give you a chance, and I give you another chance, and I will give you one more chance. Right? So that is why then the role of priests, the role of someone of saying, you have to come to me, because if you don't come to me, you're going to go to hell, because I only have the truth. Gnostics insisted very much that as you keep coming back to learn certain lessons, and certain lesson is to pulsate with that law. You know, I don't hurt anyone if I can help it, but because I would not like them to do that unto me. You know, and your life changes accordingly. And then you meditate on that oneness with the Father. So the important thing, so it's not just a question of faith, it's not a question of saying, well, somebody has done that for me, but the relationship you have to the Father, to Jesus, is of someone that opens your heart and points a finger and saying that is the way. And don't get stuck in looking at the finger. Look at what it points at. And what it points at is also you, your heart, you know, that presence within you. So it is a very, very long topic, but we will slowly, you know, approach it and try to understand it. And if your path is closer to the teachings of Jesus, but you don't feel you belong anymore to the traditional way of thinking, you know, you're saved just by this, and if you don't believe that, you're going to go to hell. If Hitler believes that at the point of his death, he goes to heaven. If Schindler, that saved tens of thousands of people at the risk of his own life, does not believe that, he's going to go to hell. You know, so that is not what the Nazarene, Ebionite, Gnostic path believed. Far from it. They drew their inspiration from the Sermon of the Mount, and then through the meditations, and we will go through those books at one point to some of the more salient and important parts and share them together. And it is by the meditations that you find in those early Gnostic books. And I'll leave you just reminding you what the first verses are in the Gospel of Thomas, where Jesus supposedly said, if you can understand the meaning of these words, then you will not taste death. And his teaching was made in such a way as to awaken something within us, you know. So when he says things like, as I mentioned before, don't call me master. If you have drunk from that source, you know, the separation has vanished. But I am you and you are me. It's not that you become Jesus. Jesus also becomes you, so that at the end you are neither you nor Jesus, but you are that presence. And then in that presence you can manifest your personality. Why not? So we have seen how the path of the Gospels, the word of Jesus, are really at the core of the message. And that's about hearing his word, his teaching, his commandments. He used all of these words in the Gospels. And it's to teach us how to receive that love. The Spirit is actually the love that comes within us, which comes as a seed, as he very often said, and then it gradually blossoms and then takes over our life. So far the Gnostics and the very early Christian churches, the Nazarenes and Ebionites, are in full agreement. As I said before, the difference was that the Gnostics did not follow the Old Testament. And also they went in a way a step further, in the sense that Jesus taught us how to be one with the love of the Father. And maybe it's not the correct word, they took it a step further, but maybe just went a little bit deeper when Jesus says, I and the Father are one. But then soon afterward, he says, it's not just me who is one with the Father. What I want to give you is that unity as well. So we are all gods, so I'm just come to awaken that realization within you, that opening, that awareness, that letting go of false identifications. So in this context, then resurrection means first to receive the word of Jesus, then to receive that word which is love, but live it not as a commandment as such that you read and say, don't do this, don't do that, but by accepting his word, by accepting his spirit, that is something that flowers within you, and you will truly be reborn, and you will live that love. So it's not about the hysterics, but it's about really pulsating with a heart which is full of the love. Now, so when the Gnostics, they put, first of all, like you read in Thomas, when the disciples called him Master, he says, don't call me Master, because now you have drunk from my same source. So I become you and you become me. So it means we both pulsate, we both are aware, we both have become this Father's energy, or Mother as you like to call it. Okay, so this really, what I want you, I don't want you to subjugate you, but I want you to come to my level. We might be different individuals, but we are all pulsating with the same heartbeat. So it's like everything in the quantum world comes from one energy, and then from that energy different pulsations arise. So a myriad, an infinitesimal number of creations spring, but they're all different vibrations of the same energy. So it's very much actually a message of oneness. And it is tragic and very sad how so many people, including scholars or so-called scholars, have totally and completely misunderstood the Gnostic message. And I'll tell you why. Because very often they say, oh, the Gnostics believe in dualism, that there are two gods. But that is not at all the case. When they say that they believed in two gods, is because the Gnostic talk about the pleroma, the absolute, that which is just silence and love, and doesn't discriminate. And then they said at a much later on in the process, and I've already in a previous video on the Gnostics I explained that in detail, when at a certain stage of processes, then the demiurge takes place. The demiurge means half God, and that is the God that created this universe, and it is the God of the Old Testament. Angry, jealous, possessive, full of unreasonable commandments, and that's what Jesus came to free us from and to take us to the Beloved, to that absolute peace and repose and silence but which is vibrating with love. And so the dying is when we realize that we were not just and only what we always thought, just a human being with a whole story, a nationality, a race, and there was all this thing like I want, because I will be happy only when I can take something away from other people, when I can put my feet over their heads, when I follow arrogance, and arrogance makes me feel good. So we live by that duality, by that sense of separation, and by making us stronger and stronger and stronger in separation, we are under the illusion that we will find peace and contentment. So this realization comes when we realize that we are not that separate. Even in science, we know that we are really belong to one same source, and we are all made of the same atoms and quarks and so forth. So when we realize that sense of unity, and we realize that that sense of unity comes with a lot of peace and contentment, and true realization of our nature, where we find repose, where really there is a source from the beloved of love which comes for no reason at all. It is not because I'm getting this or that from anyone. It is just a natural state of being. So when we become one with it, so we have died, we have put on the cross our illusions, our old self, and we are reborn with that understanding of the divinity within us. So at that time, at that moment, it is my perception, we can still remain human, and still there is a unicity of personality, because I don't know if there ever will be another one, or if ever there was or there ever was someone exactly like me, like Carlo. I'm unique, and you who are listening to me right now, you are unique. But in that uniqueness, why not? It's beautiful. You are playing your own tunes, but you're playing in harmony this time, not in contrast, not in opposition, not out of tune. This time you are in tune and part of the whole. So that's a beautiful way of receiving the world, And Jesus says, if you don't receive my word, if you don't hear the words that he spoke in the Sermon on the Mount, I'll deny you. But in a way, I don't think even that is him that he is denying you, but you're cutting yourself off from the possibility of entering into this realization. So dying on the cross is letting go of our attachment, letting go of our ignorance, letting go of the arrogance and the egotism, and then smile at the world and see the world smiling back at you, although we can see the contrapositions, the pain, the sorrow, but we are not anymore nourished by that. We are nourished by what is pulsating within us at the end of the day. That is the home where we always go back to, in the midst of sorrow, in the midst of pain, but that is where we reside. Death to the past, resurrection into the eternal present. So I hope I've clarified a little bit. I hope you have enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll meet again.